I guess we can invite Nordic Innovation to say a few welcoming words. We have the communication advisor for Nordic Innovation to speak with you today.
Yes. Hello, my name is Frederik Weitz. I'm Danish, but don't blame me for that. I work at Nordic Innovation primarily with communication. And what we would do there is actually try and build up ecosystem in different sectors. This is kind of our catchphrase under our name. We are an organization under the Nordic Council of Ministers. This is the boring stuff, so I'll run through this quite fast. But the three top pillars there are kind of the head. At top are the ministers, and we're down here. So one could say that we are the hands. And how do we then get our hands dirty? Well, as I said, we work with ecosystem. And about 10 years ago, we were appointed by the ministers to work with Nordic food. And they say, like, make Nordic food more known in the world or something. Like, it's really, really simple. So what we did was invite some of the Nordic's top chefs to a meeting in Aarhus. And there, they came up with something called the new Nordic Food Manifest. And that was actually the beginning of let's call it a food revolution. And since, as you probably know, there's numerous Nordic restaurants in the Michelin Guide. Noma, the Copenhagen restaurant, have been awarded best restaurant of the world numerous times. And la. This is Klaus Meyer. He was one of the chefs. He sold his companies half a year ago to a British investment partner, capital fund, for 700 million Danish kroners. It's just to say that chefs have become big business in the Nordics, and that has to do with how we perceive the ecosystem. In the same way, we are now looking at entrepreneurship and startup. We have done that for half a year. We did a market analysis, and this is kind of the outline of that, or the conclusions, at least some of it. So the upside is that the Nordic region is emerging as one of the leading geographies for entrepreneurship and innovation, and we have a relatively high level of startup activity. Our problem is that we are really bad at scaling, and there is a number of reasons for that, but one is that we're not good enough to collaborate. So the insight here is that by doing something Nordic, we can actually solve this problem. And why is that? One of the main factors is critical mass. So we tried to find 10 projects that could fit in this ecosystem view of thinking. And we think we found 10 really, really good projects, the Nordic Crowdfunding Alliance being one of them. But I want to mention, because you're going to speak a lot about that, I think, so I'm going to mention 3 others that are relevant to you as investors or startups as well. And one is the Nordic Business Angel Network, the Nordic Band. This is a platform where startup and investors meet. It was launched at Slush in November, but already there is 1,500 investors of this network. And I think there is a deal flow from these investors of 2,700 per year. So it's really a network that is growing. They of course have a website, nordicband.info, I think. So check that out, or you can also find it on our webpage. Then we have the Nordic Innovation House in Silicon Valley. And it's good that we're trying to build an ecosystem here, but it's also important when you talk about scaling that people or the startups can live up to their potential. So the Nordic representations in Silicon Valley gave us an application for funding to create this house where they pool all their resources and connections and everything just to help the startups coming out there. So instead of having one country represent you, you actually have 5. And instead of having success or startup successes from one country, you actually have startup successes from 5 countries. This means a lot in Silicon Valley because investors are really interested in getting the best startups. And it all has to do with critical mass and being 25 or 26 million, as the Nordic countries are, instead of 4, 5, 8. There is, of course, more startup successes out there. The last project I'm going to mention of ours is Nordic Venture Capital Return Statistics. That's a long word, but this is an analysis that actually says it's good business to do venture capital in startups. The return, I have to look at the number now, but the return was, I think, 13.2%, and just to compare that, the Nasdaq return was 11.4%. So the bad reputation that venture capital in startup has is simply wrong. And I think being here at DNB, and might possibly be some pension funds in the room as well, you need to listen here, because this is important. Anyway, moving on. That was my quick introduction to how we try and build up ecosystems. We're also, of course, and I'm a communication manager, working with Nordic Made as a symbol of how to communicate Nordic startup stories. Here I'm eating a, what do you call it, smalhode or something, sheephead, at Startup Extreme last year. For me, that was a really a good experience, also of seeing how two worlds can actually come together, and just with old money, as I believe banks are, and then startups can also come together. Here we have brought, at the picture in the top right, we brought 10 companies to New York. That's the amazing thing about startups. They're so willing to do anything. So they just came along. We didn't fund them or anything, because they saw the brand value of it. So, but here we rang the Nasdaq bell. It was really an experience, and we launched this hashtag Nordic Made, but it's much more than a hashtag. It's actually a label trying to brand the Nordic region also outside the Nordics. So contact me if you want more information. Thank you.
Now we're